Hey guys. How's my internet? I heard some complaints that it was a little spotty, so I hope that everyone can hear and see me okay. All right, so here is Michelle.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
Good. You look so beautiful.
Thanks. I was just literally just sitting in the sun, just
Oh my,
letting it hit me. Yeah.
well, you look relaxed.
Very. How are you? How's Austin?
It's good. I mean, it's freezing today, which is crazy. I think it's
Mm.
like 40 degrees, which is wild. And this week we have a low of like 14 degrees, which is like super
Oh
weird.
my gosh.
Yeah.
That's why we
So
gotta save the planet, y'all. These
exactly.
temperatures are it's
Killing
not normal.
something. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a little wild. I feel like last year I was wearing shorts, or last week I was wearing shorts. So it's very up and down, which is a little alarming, or a lot alarming. Um, but
Which is
which
why we
brings
can
me,
have this conversation.
yes, exactly,
Exactly.
exactly. So I wanted to first introduce you, Michelle. If you want to tell people a little bit about what you're doing and what you're up to, and just fill everyone in.
Sure. So, hi everyone for being here. My name is Michelle. I'm co-founder of From Privilege to Progress. We are anti-racism educators, and we just our origin story is the Starbucks story where the two black men were arrested in a Philadelphia Starbucks in 2018. That is our origin story. But me as an individual, while anti-racism is really important to me, sustainability and healthy eating and living, it ties directly into that. And so this topic is incredibly important to me personally, not just for my own health and well-being, but the future generations and really building equity and what we can do to really make the world a safe and healthy place for every human alive.
Yes, exactly what she said. Um, but no, I for those of you who are just tuning in and learning about Michelle, please go follow From Privilege to Progress because it is a wealth of information. It's very inspiring, and I know that for myself, it's really encouraged me to do some really internal deep dives on how I can make a bigger impact on this community, and using my voice and my platform to make sure that I am being as thoughtful as I can and speaking up where I can, wherever I can, which brings me to the environment, which is super fascinating. And one of the things when, we're all confronted, unfortunately, for some, it was only this year, this has been racial inequality has been going on for way too long. But especially this year, there's been obviously a series of events. A lot of us are doing bigger and deeper dives. One of the things that I really discovered that I thought was shocking is um, the environment, and that many people don't understand how the environment intersects with social injustice. And in order to solve this problem of climate change, we also need to address social injustice issues. We can't solve one without speaking to the other. They are they are connected, and that's something that I really didn't understand. And I think all the more to be having this conversation. Um, Now, tell me, do you what are your thoughts on that, and how do you speak to that?
Honestly, Jen, I didn't understand either. I didn't understand until a few years ago when I started doing research because I understood that I also grew up privileged. I grew up in a middle upper class town right outside of Hershey, Pennsylvania, and and I'm African too. And so we didn't have the education or the knowledge of the history that's been going on in this country. And when COVID struck and they were saying that it was impacting the Black and Brown communities more, I knew that on an intellectual level. Like whatever happens, the Black and Brown communities always get hit the hardest. But I was like, okay, but but how and why? How and why? How and why? How and why? It's a virus, right? But your immune system is like the number one, I would say, is like the number one factor in how well you're able to fight any kind of disease. A
Hmm.
cold, I mean, I haven't had the flu since I was in elementary school. I don't remember. I barely get sick. It's just, but I eat pretty well. And I was like, okay, let's look at how all these dots connect. And when you realize that environmental racism directly impacts the health, longevity, and lifespan of people, I'm like, well, that just makes sense. You know, there's a whole area in Louisiana. We talked about this last night. A whole area in Louisiana called Cancer Alley,
Right.
because companies are allowed to dump their waste in these neighborhoods right by Black and brown people. Well, if the soil is tainted, if the soil is toxic, if the soil isn't healthy, then any of the food that grows in that soil isn't healthy. And if you don't have healthy soil, you don't have healthy food, you don't have healthy people. And I was like, okay, that's what makes sense. And to be honest with you, I've been I've been a little frustrated with the way that like the coverage of the virus has been covered, as far as what to do about it and how to keep it at bay. To me, the only thing that they've been saying is wash your hands, wear a mask, and social distance. Of
Hmm.
course, we have to do those things. We have to do those things. But
Right.
how about eating well? What are our leaders doing about helping us have access to healthy water, or access to clean water, access to organic foods, just access to a grocery store, access to foods that we can afford?
Right.
I mean, why is an avocado like $3? Like, when the nutrients in an avocado are so essential to your well-being. Like, why are all of our watermelons seedless? The seeds in a watermelon are like they're little multivitamins. So it's things like this that, you know, people don't really, I don't think people think about enough, that it's not just about hand washing and social distancing, which you need to do,
Right.
but the access that different people have to healthy food and clean water is just not the same for everybody.
Right.
And even me, even though I am a Black person, I had to make those connections for myself. I grew up privileged in that respect. And so it's really up to all of us to say, you know, what are we doing to help our neighbors? You know, I lived in Philadelphia for 5 years, and it was very easy to like be in my little privileged block and walk 3 blocks, and there's no grocery store. I'm like, why isn't there a Sprouts, you know, in this part of Philadelphia? Why isn't there an Acme in this part of Philadelphia? When I look around, I'm like, it's the Black and brown neighborhoods. And so, yeah, it's just really important that we figure out how to get food to everybody and be sustainable, because there's no shortage of food. It's just, I don't know if you saw that there's this
Just
one guy
food
who does
waste.
really, yeah, there's no shortage of foods. They're
We what is
creating
it? We
food
throw
deserts.
away. I think we throw away at least globally. We throw away at least a third of our food. I think in America it's what, 40%?
40%,
Yeah.
40% of the food. Why can't we take that food and drive it into neighborhoods that don't have any grocery stores?
Hmm.
I mean, it's just bonkers to me. It's bonkers to me, but that's what systemic oppression is. It is systemically creating these situations for people that make them susceptible to disease.
Yes.
That's
No.
what's happening.
I mean, as you said, it's very, the inequality is so apparent. And I think that we need to start changing our habits and really doing a deep dive into this and understanding how we are part of this cycle and where are we in this cycle and what are the changes that we can make. Because it really should be, I love Green for All. I don't know if you're familiar with Green for All, but I love their saying where it's, you know, we should have green for all, not just for some. Essentially, we all live on this planet. Whether you live across town or you're in a different state, we are part of this community, and we need to make it green for all, essentially, because we are all going to be part of this planet and part of the cycle. And so we really need to focus in and hone in on our, what our contribution to this problem. Um, I read this great book that John Freeman edited. He's this incredible writer and editor, and he wrote A Tale of Two Planets. And it was really fascinating about the inequalities within the environment and social justice, and how, you know, a lot of communities get the short end of the stick. You know, the waste system, like you're saying, like Cancer Alley, you know, and you know, I'm sure that most people who are watching this or reading go like, well, why don't they move? That's just not an option. Someone can't just go like, oh yeah, you know, like I'm choosing to live here and get cancer and be in the shitstorm, you know, and get waste in my backyard or whatever. A lot of people can't get their way out of it. So we need to change that cycle and make sure that no one should be living in that kind of environment at all. And what part do we play in this? And there are many ways that we can create change, and we're trying to solve that here. Not solve, but just provide answers in town by talking with people and having conversations about people who want change and change makers. And I think we need to start understanding like who we can talk to and what we can do ourselves and vote and, you know, habit changing and all sorts of things. It seems really dire at times, but I also feel like we have to have a positive outlook and, you know, just feel like we have some sort of control. I think that
It
sometimes
can be
makes,
done.
yeah.
It can be done. That's the thing. It can be done if enough people are educated and feel empowered and feel like they can do something. And someone wrote a comment that we need to be supporting our farmers. Oh, you know what? That is so important. This farmers protest, the largest protest like in human history that's going on in India. I'm gonna just ask some officials, and I'm like, if the farmers stop working, how are you gonna eat?
Yeah, exactly. I
What?
don't think people understand sometimes the process that's involved because everything is so convenient, at least, you know, in the Western world, especially. You know, we walk into any store, like you're saying, Sprouts, you know, you're like, I would like the organic greens, please, for my, you know, sandwich.
Exactly.
I'd like the broccoli sprouts, not the, you know, sunflower sprouts. And we
Yeah.
can get whatever we want whenever we want, you know,
Yep.
especially now, even with the pandemic, you think it makes things harder, but you can order, you know, with your phone and it's like here in 2 minutes. So I think
Yep.
there's this huge disconnect sometimes, and it's not until there is, you know, the climate change is like really impacting us with crazy inclement weather and such that you are like, wait a minute, this is odd, you know. And with the protesting going on, it's almost like when it's too late, do people realize?
Exactly. I was listening to a podcast again earlier because you know I love my podcast,
I
and I
love
read
it.
that Iowa was like Iowa is like one of the has the largest farmland I think in the country, but the people who live did I say Ireland? I meant Iowa.
Iowa, right? Iowa.
The people in Iowa have a hard time getting access to fresh produce and organic food because the farmers in Iowa send all of their food across the country. Like
Wow.
farmers used to support their families and support their local communities. And no longer is it that farmers are supporting their local communities, they're feeding the world. I mean, think about it. Like you get avocados. I mean, I'm sure that avocados probably can't grow anywhere in America. I don't know, maybe they can grow in like
I don't
Florida.
know.
But I'm like, yeah, but I'm like, why am I always eating fruit, fruits from all over the world?
Hmm.
How did it get here? When was it actually, like, when did it, like, what was the process and how did it get to me?
Yeah.
I don't understand this, but then the people in that town aren't able to get the food. It's bananas. It is bananas.
That's
And
wild.
it's really right now I'm in Ghana, and that culture of like westernized consumerism has spread here, and foreigners come in and they've built grocery stores here in Ghana, which is not like, I mean, grocery stores have been here for a very long time, but they've become very, very commercialized. I mean, I can get American food in my Ghana grocery store. But what I'm seeing here is something that's really, really sad to me, and it's like upper class people only going to the grocery store to buy their food. I saw a patch of what was it? Not lettuce. It was a cabbage for $20. $20 for
Wow.
cabbage. And I was so infuriated. I told the worker, I said, whoever set the price of this cabbage was high when they did it, because that's insane. And
Yeah,
they have this mentality that, you know, if I
more
eat
expensive,
locally,
better.
more expensive, it's better. If I eat locally, that means that I'm poor, and I don't want people to think that I'm poor. And yet, the local food is grown by local Ghanaian women who grow it in their yard or their farm or whatnot. When you get the ginger, it's dirty. It's so beautiful. The ginger is dirty because they just
Yeah.
pulled it from the ground,
And
and
we
it's
need that
there's
dirt.
no. Exactly. Yes, we need the dirt, and there's no glyphosate in it. There's no, you know, there's no pesticides on it. All the food that they're providing for us is local and organic and affordable. But people would rather go to the grocery store, and I feel like we have a similar mentality in America. I mean, yes, they're starting to catch on, but you know, why do we need to make a Sprouts Farmers Market grocery store? Why aren't we more promoting people actually going to their farms, going to the farmers? Like, I mean, because and who's profiting in those grocery stores? Getting the short end of the stick because the money has to go to, you know, all the bills that the grocery store has to pay, and you know, the money has to go to the workers, and the money gets spread out so the farmer barely gets anything. So how are we really supporting our farmers?
Yeah, no, and that's a great question. And it's tough. I mean, and again, we live in the modern world, so we have to, at a convenience sake, sometimes we go, we don't want to put grocery stores out of business, but we also at the same time
Of
want to
course.
support our local farmers, because in supporting our local farmers, they're feeding our gut biome, and we have to pay attention to our own health, especially during the pandemic. Like, what are the ways in which we can nurture ourselves and nurture ourselves? So, putting the oxygen mask on first, it's cyclical, right? So it's just, but it's figuring out that balance. And, that's something that I really want to strive to really hit hard with, is that it is a balance. It's not all or nothing. We can't only eat at farm. I mean, you can only eat at farms if that's your MO, but like, that's not always the case in the way we live. So it's just figuring out that right balance and educating ourselves in doing so in the process of it.
Hmm.
But it's just mind blowing. I was shocked because I started listening to more podcasts after you were telling me about. It was, I believe, it was on the pharmacy one. Is it pharmacy? What was
Hmm.
it? Yeah.
The
Um,
doctor's pharmacy.
the doctor's pharmacy, which is just fascinating. There's a great episode about food waste, and I was blown away. And then I started doing this deep dive of like, how much food waste is there? And it's
Yeah.
shocking. And then it's not easy. You can't just throw that away, because then the food going into a landfill, um, it's all dumped and compacted on top of each other. So then there's no oxygen, and with the lack of oxygen, then there's methane gas, which is so much
Mm.
more powerful than calling. Um, and so that's why I keep talking about, composting. I don't know if do you compost at all? Have you tried
No,
compost?
I do not compost.
It's, I
I
was
should be
so,
composting.
well, we all should, but it is, I mean, it's not, for the faint of heart, especially if you don't like, a couple of bugs and worms. It is gross, but it is something that, once you get the hang of it and the process of it, you realize like how much you're feeding. It's like, again, it's cyclical. You put it back into the soil, and then it feeds whatever, plants that you're growing, or you can, donate it to, there's usually compost within the city. And so you're contributing
Hmm.
back to the earth and back to your own body. And you also get in touch with like, the amount of food waste too, by realizing what you're dumping.
Definitely. You know, like what I started doing is I don't buy as much at the grocery store. One, I don't go to the grocery store hungry. If I
That's
do
smart.
go. Yeah. But I just buy less. Like I'll buy food that I know it's gonna be, like we will wait until we have almost no food
Yeah.
before we go back to buy more food. Because if you buy even just a little bit more, it's gonna go to waste. Like I get so upset when I'm like, oh, what, how did I let a mango go to waste?
Yeah.
Like what,
I didn't
but
see it. It was like
again,
the fridge or whatever.
exactly. But there's that mindset shift, that it's because we are consumers in every other aspect of our lives, especially in the Western world.
Yes.
So how do you break that cycle? It's not just with, it's gonna be, it has to be a lifestyle change. It's not just with food. You can't do it just in one area.
Yeah.
You have to look at, okay, how am I over consuming everywhere in my life? And then it's gonna just be a natural lifestyle change, and it's just gonna be much easier to get on board. But I think when you just try to kind of pick and choose what parts of your life you want to do this in, it's never gonna be sustainable.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's incremental changes too. Again, like it's not going to happen overnight. And I don't think you should suddenly be vegan or, hunt all your food. It's going to take some time and to figure out what feels right for you. Your habits are different than my habits. So what are those things that we can all do, that it's right for you?
Yeah.
So I know that you have lots going on in your life and world, so I won't take up too much of your time, but I'm just wondering, what are some things that you want to take into 2021, and what are some things that you are leaving behind in 2020?
Things that I'm leaving behind in 2020. You know what? I'm gonna start with things I want to take into 2021. The things I want to take into 2021, I'm pretty authentic, like at my work with P2P, but I realized that it's easy for me to just be myself because like it's something that's sort of outside of myself. And so something that I wanted to practice more in 2021 is being a bit more vulnerable with my own story and like what I actually go through and the things that I experience to help other people, because that's how we connect. We
100%.
connect through storytelling. And I realized, I said, maybe it's so, like when I think about my own personal brand, I'm like, why is it so difficult for me to come up with this when P2P it's not easy, but it's less challenging. It's because it's something outside of myself. I'm not having to necessarily share too much about my personal, and I'm like, you know what? But when I do share, the amount of people that are able to resonate with my stories really made me realize that I need to be a lot more vulnerable and be comfortable with that. So I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to be more vulnerable. I'm also trying to be better at learning from my own lessons. Like this work has made me open up to people in a way that if you're not careful, you can allow like a lot of energies into your life that maybe aren't the best for you. And someone who's an empath and likes to connect with people and be friends with people is something that I've struggled with my entire life. And 2021 is that year that everyone wants it to be the best year because 2020 was so terrible. And I don't see 2020 as necessarily terrible. I know there were a lot of bad things that happened, but we have to be able to learn from terrible things that happen. If we don't learn from the things that happen to us, then what are we doing on this earth? And 2020 has taught me that if you do not do exactly what it is that you want to do, your life can be snuffed out tomorrow. I mean, I think I got COVID earlier this year. I got sick, and I just treated myself like I had it. Like I was like, you know what? Let me just self-isolate. I don't know if I have it, but let me just not be around people. And I realized like there was a moment where I got scared because I said, you know what? Even though I'm healthy, this virus doesn't care. It could snuff me out in the next 3 days. And it really made you take a step back and say, how am I living my life? Who are the people that I'm allowing into my space? Like, are the people in my space, are they giving me good energy? Are they draining me? Are they filling me? Am I really living my life authentically? Am I going after everything that I really want to go after? And am I helping the people around me do the same?
Yeah.
And it really, really, I mean, I know some people who passed from it, and it's really, really, it just shakes you up. And so in 2020, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to unapologetically do whatever the F I want to do. And I haven't, like, I've always thought that I was like that. But until something like 2020 happens, you realize I'm not actually 100% doing everything that I want to do. And I am taking life for granted. So I don't want to take life for granted anymore, and my health for granted. And yeah, I'm just trying to be more open and honest this year.
That sounds amazing. I mean, it sounds like being self-sustaining to you then and moving forward into 2021 is being honest and authentic with yourself, nurturing yourself in a healthy way where you feel like you're advocating for yourself and not being afraid, which in turn is going to allow you to have more boundaries move forward in nurturing your community in a positive way, knowing that you are being honest, authentic, and nurturing and taking care of yourself.
You know what? There's one other thing I forgot that I want to take
Yeah.
into 2021, and that is not having too many expectations. And I tell you what, because when I came to Ghana, I had an expectation of what it was going to be like, and it was the complete opposite. And I found myself in a little bit of depression for like 2 weeks. My boyfriend looked at me. He was like, "You're not happy," and I was like, "What? What did you say to me?" Because I always think like I'm a happy person. He's like, "You're not happy," and I was like, "Shit!" And I realized it's because I was holding on to this idea of what something should be like, and not just being like in a flow state. And once I just like dropped that and let that go and said it is what it is, and whatever comes my way, I'm just gonna flow with it and go with it and learn from it. Like that weight just fell off of me. And so I think that's another thing that 2020 taught us. You know, we always expect things to be one way. We expect life to be one way, and something can just flip it upside down.
100%.
And if we're not able to learn how to be adaptable, our world is going to come crashing down. We have to learn how to be adaptable, and we have to learn how to flow with everything that life gives us. Otherwise, you know, we'll get depressed.
No, I 100% agree with you. And just, again, like, I think that also goes back to really nurturing yourself, making sure that you have, your feet on the ground, like, who you are, and you're being honest and authentic and really nurturing that. And I think then when things come your way that you're not expecting, you somehow can cushion it a little bit better, maybe.
Exactly.
Well, I love this conversation, and I really want to continue this conversation. I think this is a great jumping off point for us to continue. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I so appreciate so much of your insight. I love your advocacy. I love how honest, how real you are. To me, you're just so honest when I watch you and I learn from you. And I'm so honored to sit here and have this conversation with you.
Oh, thank you. Likewise.
Chatting more. You're such a light, and I'm really grateful. So thank you so much for being part of the town community, and I'm really excited.
Thank you. I'm excited too.
Well, to many more discussions.
Yes.
All right.
Congratulations with town. I'm very excited to see what happens and what you have
planned.
Thank
you so much. I'm very excited. So thank you for being part of this day, and I'm really excited. So thanks, Michelle.
All right, talk soon.
Sounds good.